Have you ever had this moment? You're eating better than you ever have. You're lifting, you're walking, you've cut the wine way down, and yet your waistline is still growing. Your joints ache, the scale will not move. If you've quietly wondered, what is wrong with me? Why does my body hate me all of a sudden? This episode is for you. Today, we're going to talk about the real reason so many midlife women get stuck in fat loss resistance, even when they're doing everything right. It is not just your hormones, it's not just your age, it's a type of chronic low grade inflammation that's quietly kind of taking over your metabolism. But the good news is that there are clear science backed ways to start shifting it this week.
Welcome to the Fitness Simplified podcast. I'm Brooke Davis, women's functional nutritionist and fitness specialist with Elysian Women's Wellness, and I'm here to simplify your fitness.
In today's episode, we're talking about the link between chronic inflammation and stubborn weight in midlife women. So if you're in your 30s, 40s, or 50s, and you've noticed that what used to work for you to lose weight before doesn't anymore, or maybe you've added more cardio, less food, and your body has responded with just exhaustion instead of results, this is likely one of the missing pieces. I have had multiple clients that were struggling with this, and when we ran their labs, the inflammation marker was 3-4 times higher than it should have been. Once we focus on calming that inflammation down, instead of just trying to cut more calories, they have more energy, their body hurts less, and fat loss becomes so much easier. So in this episode, we're going to break down what low-grade inflammation actually is, how it specifically affects the female metabolism, hidden drivers that keep you inflamed and stuck, and then 3 data-driven strategies that you can start this week to lower inflammation and unlock fat loss. Let's start with what chronic low-grade inflammation is and why women in midlife need to take it more seriously. When most people hear the word inflammation, they think of like a sprained ankle, right? It's big, it's red, swollen. That is acute inflammation. That is loud, it's obvious, right? And it usually goes away after a few days, maybe a week once you've healed. What we're talking about today is chronic low-grade inflammation, sometimes called metaflammation, which is metabolically induced inflammation, just driving me crazy, or inflammaging, which is age-related inflammation. It's subtle, it builds slowly, and it's not tied necessarily to a single injury or infection. Instead, your immune system is just slightly turned up all the time. This is actually another factor in autoimmune, which can unexpectedly present itself in midlife as well, but that's another topic. So in women 35 to 55, this is extremely common. As we're moving into perimenopause, menopause, a few of these big changes hormonally are happening at once. So estrogen and progesterone are fluctuating, ultimately in a decline. And both of those hormones naturally have anti-inflammatory, stabilizing effects in the body. During this age, we're also a lot of times experiencing more stress, more responsibility, less sleep, sometimes due to hormones, sometimes due to other things. And then activity patterns are changing. So muscle mass is declining, that visceral fat, the belly fat around the organs starts to increase because of these hormonal shifts. And research shows us that systemic inflammation in midlife is linked to poorer metabolic function and cardiovascular outcomes later on, even when you adjust for weight and lifestyle. Basically, these inflammatory signals are independently predictive of problems, just a side effect. Another key thing to really understand is where this inflammation lives, essentially. It's not just in your blood, like the lab markers would tell us. It lives in places like adipose tissue. Fat cells themselves can actually become hormonally active. They become inflamed. It can be in the liver, especially with things like non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, blood sugar issues. This is why detox support in midlife is so crucial. And then muscle tissue, which obviously affects how well you respond to exercise, how you're building muscle, burning fat, recovering. So if you feel like your metabolism had slowed down, you're more inflamed after workouts, or your body is just holding on to everything, chronic low-grade inflammation is a very real factor to consider. Let's walk through how inflammation actually gets in the way of fat loss, because this is something that is somewhat misunderstood. The first is insulin resistance. So inflammation interferes with insulin signaling in both fat tissue and muscle. When this signaling is reduced, your cells don't respond the way that they should. They don't take up glucose effectively. It stays in the bloodstream. So your body then compensates by producing more insulin. Over time, that higher insulin can increase fat storage, especially around the midsection. It makes it harder to access stored fat for fuel. So it is reducing the ability to burn fat. And then it increases your cravings and energy crashes. So you can be eating well, you can be moving your body, but if inflammation in the body is driving that insulin resistance underneath the surface, you are essentially metabolically, fighting the current, so to speak. The second way inflammation blocks fat loss is through impacting your thyroid and mitochondria. So inflammatory signals can change how your thyroid hormones are converted and used at the tissue level. So you might even have quote unquote normal labs at a glance, but your thyroid hormone may not necessarily be getting into the cells optimally or converting into its active form. So, especially if your doctor is only testing TSH, you're missing the bigger picture. Okay. The liver and the gut play a huge role in this. And these systems are also impacted by hormonal shifts, which makes the perfect storm. Your mitochondria are basically these tiny energy factories inside your cells, but they're also very sensitive to inflammation. So this chronic low-grade inflammation, it can disrupt nutrient uptake and reduce mitochondrial efficiency, which shows up as these lower overall energy levels, which so many women are complaining about, slower recovery and reduced fat oxidation, meaning you burn less fat at rest and during exercise. So workouts are less effective. Your normal weight management is shifting to be less effective. The third way that inflammation blocks fat loss is through hormonal shifts. So these hormonal shifts in midlife actually change where you store fat and how inflammatory your fat tissue becomes, like I mentioned. So as your overall estrogen drops, women tend to kind of be changing from this pear-shaped, more fat on the hips and thighs, toward more of that visceral abdominal fat, more of the apple shape and belly fat. This visceral fat is metabolically active and it produces inflammatory chemicals that only further reduce insulin sensitivity and disrupt hormonal balance. So inflammation and fat gain essentially feed each other. More visceral fat equals more inflammation equals more insulin resistance and hormonal disruption. More disruption makes it harder to lose the fat that's causing the inflammation. It really is a vicious cycle. And that is why the just eat less, move more in a caloric deficit advice completely misses the mark for women over 30, essentially. At this point, it's not just about calories in, calories out. It's about biochemistry, and that calories in, calories out equation has been disrupted. Now let's talk about some of the less obvious things that keep inflammation and that stubborn weight in place. So number one, which I mentioned and did my last podcast episode on, is gut health and dysbiosis. Your gut is one of the biggest immune organs in your body. So when this gut lining is compromised in what you've probably heard referred to as leaky gut, or when your microbiome is out of balance, small fragments of bacteria, food particles can get into your bloodstream and trigger this systemic inflammation. It triggers an immune response. You will feel this as bloating or distension, disrupted bowel movements, food reactions that you maybe never used to have, brain fog, joint aches, skin flare-ups. If you are only focusing on calories, but you are ignoring the gut health side of it and you have these other symptoms, you are missing a huge piece of the puzzle. So if you want to address this better, go listen to the last podcast episode on this specifically. It dives into it a lot deeper. The second hidden driver is blood sugar swings. Again, kind of mentioned this, but every big spike in blood sugar followed by this crash, it's not just about your mood and energy roller coaster. It is also inflammatory. While your blood sugar is not meant to stay stable, research does show us that repeated spikes can increase inflammatory cytokines even in people without diabetes. So some of the signs of these blood sugar irregularities are if you get shaky or irritable or like hangry, if you're going more than a few hours without eating, if you are relying on caffeine and sugar to push yourself through the afternoon, if after a high carb meal, you just crash, you feel like you want to go take a nap. Over time, these major swings make it much harder for your body to burn fat consistently. The third driver, and something that is largely overlooked, is nervous system regulation or dysregulation from chronic stress, poor recovery. Okay. This high stress lifestyle, along with poor sleep, has been shown to increase pro inflammatory markers and impair your metabolic health. For women in midlife, this will usually look like going hard all day and collapsing at night, but maybe only getting light, broken sleep, that 2 to 4 a.m. wake up, not being able to go back to sleep, feeling tired but wired, like your body is totally exhausted, but your brain just won't turn off. When your nervous system never gets out of this fight or flight, your body will prioritize survival, not optimal fat loss. And then finally, we have food intolerances and micronutrient deficiencies, which can quietly increase inflammation in the body. So some of the most common culprits of this are going to be excessive sugar and then processed foods, highly processed foods. Individual sensitivities, gluten, dairy are super common, not for everybody, but and then low levels of some of the key minerals like magnesium, zinc, selenium, these can actually raise your oxidative stress. They can keep your immune system mildly, again, turned up, mildly activated. And this is one of the reasons that a whole food, nutrient dense plate does actually matter much more in your 40s and 50s than it might have in your 20s, because we have to manage some of these systemic shifts. So let's switch from information into action steps. So here are 3 data-driven strategies that you can start to use this week to start to calm that inflammation and actually unlock your fat burning metabolism and its ability to do so. So number 1 is your plate. Like I just mentioned, for your main meals, you want to aim for 30 grams of protein. So like a palm size is a serving. We want to go for like 1.5 of that for that 30 grams of chicken, fish, tofu, Greek yogurt. And then the other half of your plate should be color. So non-starchy veggies, greens, peppers, broccolis, carrots, and then healthy fats, olive oil, avocados, nuts, seeds. And then we want high fiber whole carbs. So things like sweet potato, quinoa, beans, those are all really great to have to balance out your plate and base them on your activity level. Okay. This type of plate is going to help stabilize your blood sugar. It's going to fuel your muscle recovery. It supports your hormones and it reduces your inflammatory load over time. Number 2 is going to be nervous system regulation. We want to calm the nervous system and then move with intention. So if you have a daily goal of 5 to 10 minutes of breath work, journaling, just super simple nervous system resets like extended exhales. I give you multiple of these in our 7-day metabolic reignite, but those are a couple. And then just a 5 to 15-minute walk after your meals helps to improve blood sugar and lowers inflammatory responses. So even just these small shifts can actually significantly reduce stress driven inflammation, can improve how your body handles food, recovers from exercise, all things that are, again, important in this phase of life. And then number 3 is to use labs and visible data to guide you. Okay. Get data. Do not guess on this. Get your labs done. Testing for things like high sensitivity C reactive protein. This is a pretty general inflammation marker. You can get more specific ones, but if you don't have this, this is a place to start. Metabolic markers. So fasting insulin, glucose, your lipids, and then of course, hormone levels can all be helpful. I do have a midlife mastery checklist that goes over all of the labs of importance in midlife that you should be getting, why you should be getting them, how to talk to your doctor about them. So I will link that below. Research in perimenopausal women shows a clear relationship between these markers, symptom burden, body composition, and mood, energy levels. Okay. So, of course, pair these with just simple at home metrics, the basics. Okay. The waist to hip ratio measurements, energy levels throughout the day, your bloating, digestion, bowel movements, your sleep quality and quantity. Using that combination plus labs plus your day to day biofeedback to adjust your nutrition, your movement, your recovery plan. Okay. Instead of just blindly following generic protocols, sticking to whatever 7-day workouts you're given by whoever or trying to follow. Okay. Things like that matter. So just a really quick one. Starting today, pick one high sugar refined snack you normally have. Maybe you're reaching for that afternoon cookie, the ice cream after dinner, maybe the sugary coffee. Swap this out for a whole food option. Berries with Greek yogurt, apple slices with almond butter, a handful of nuts plus dark chocolate or like the Lily's chocolate, stevia sweetened. Those are amazing. And stick with that. Okay. Just notice, pay attention for 7 days. What happens to your midday energy, your cravings, when you remove just that one inflammatory spike? Tying this all together. So, this chronic low grade inflammation, this is not a fix later kind of situation. This is a very central reason why your metabolism feels stuck, why fat loss can be harder, why you're more tired, why you're doing more keeps backfiring. When you address this hidden inflammation through gut health, blood sugar balance, nervous system support, intelligent nutrition, fueling, your body finally gets permission to let go. Okay. And not just permission, it biochemically removes the barriers of fat storage and increases energy. So if you are listening to this and you're like, okay, I know this is me, but I don't know where to start, here is your next step. Go take our free hormone and metabolism analysis. It's linked below in the show notes. This is just a short assessment that helps you identify where your biggest blocks are. Hormones, inflammation, metabolism, okay, whatever it is, it's going to pinpoint that for you. It'll walk you through your first action steps plus a roadmap of how to get where you want to go from there. Hey, your body is not intentionally working against you, but it is responding to the signals that it's been given. So when you change those signals, especially around inflammation, you change your results.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of the Fitness Simplified podcast. We are stoked to have you join us on your journey to better health and fitness. If you have any questions, suggestions for future topics, or you just want to chat, feel free to reach out to us on Instagram at Brooke_Elysian and Facebook linked in the show notes or via our website, ElysianWomen'sWellness.com. And if you enjoyed what you heard today, we'd be thrilled if you could take a half second to leave us a 5-star rating and review so that you can help others find our show. If there was something you heard that was helpful or impactful, please screenshot, tag me, and share what it was so that we can bring you more. Plus, you'll be entered into our monthly Legion Recharge post-workout giveaway. New episodes drop every other Monday, so make sure to hit that subscribe button and stay tuned for more. For listening.